Hi everyone, welcome to What It Takes to Be a Creative Boss, organised by Westminster alumni, the alumni team. Thank you for putting on a great event for us. I hope you enjoy this evening and get a lot of great and useful insight. Just a note, we are running on a very tight schedule of time, so we're going to try and get as much out as quickly as possible. A little bit about myself first. I'm Sheila Birunji from the Creative Enterprise Centre, and a little bit on what we do. We'll set the context to this talk and the speakers we have today. So we are a new initiative, been around for about a year. We were set up to really bridge the gap between students' time at university and the creative industries. We work towards helping students build their commercial skills, encouraging them to innovate, also become more employable and set up their own businesses or scale up their freelancing if they do so already. So yeah, that's what we do. Kind of into more detail is what we do is split across four main areas, one being what we call the creative agency, and that is essentially what it sounds like. We source paid work opportunities for our students by partnering with employers, specifically within the creative industries, and that could be through freelance work, internships, or managed projects. The other part of what we do is called the Creative Accelerator, and that is helping students set up their own businesses or scale those up and take their freelancing to the next level. So that bridges in really well with the agency, which is getting them those work opportunities to build their portfolios. The other bit that we do is Creative Skill Labs, and that is organising events like this, which is more practical workshops, getting people from industry to come in and share their insights and advise on how students could bridge into industry. The other area is around digital labs, and that's getting students to experiment with innovative technologies, but to also make the most of the amazing range of cutting-edge technology and media equipment we have across the different schools in the university. So that's about the Creative Enterprise Centre. So really we're all about creative enterprise, which bridges in really well to the speakers we have today. So we have William from Xylo, who studied, who is an alumni, of course, and he studied computer science. You can clap. So yeah, William's the founder of Xylo, which is a digital media agency.
Yeah, creative agency.
Creative agency. And we also have Joan the founder of Fruit Social, and also an alumni, and she studied media studies and then an MA in hypermedia. Thank you. And we have Dr. Paul Dwyer, who is the Director of Academic Enterprise, and we work very closely in the Creative Enterprise Centre. So, before we go into the different themes, which will be, we'll be talking about creativity, what is creativity, the changing landscape across the creative sector, also the importance of having a vision, and social media marketing, then ideas and business and the connection between the two, and then managing creative businesses, and also Brexit and diversity, and of course what Westminster as a university is doing around those key themes. But before that, I want to speak to the speakers, and hopefully they'll let us know what they've been up to since leaving Westminster, or Paul, what he's doing, still being here. So first, William.
Okay, so I graduated from University of Westminster 2006, and it was the same year that, 2 weeks after my graduation, I moved to Manchester. Why Manchester? While I was at university here, I actually did business computing, not computer science. a lot of my friends went University of Manchester and Manchester Met. And at the time, in my first year, they kept on telling me, oh, come to Manchester, it's amazing. I'd never been out of London like properly before then, so I was like, oh, what am I going to Manchester for? You know, there's nothing there. But they eventually convinced me to come. I went up for I was supposed to go up for 2 days. I stayed for 6. Loved it, just loved the vibe, the people, the atmosphere. And while I was at university, I just kept on seeing my friends in Manchester. And then when I graduated, I just thought to myself, you know what, let me just move. I love it there. I love the energy. And I just moved up there, and I started my own company a year before I graduated, just doing design and graphic design. Then moved to Manchester. My first big clients were based in Manchester. And I just developed the business into more like website design, branding, art direction, and started to just become like a specialist in my field, mainly working for music, fashion, entertainment, lifestyle brands. And then in 2017, I thought it was best time to come back to London and just continue my career and building the company from here. I still go to Manchester quite often because I've got clients. Half my clients are in London, half my clients are in Manchester, and overseas as well.
And Joan, what have you been up to
God. Since when?
since both first your undergrad and then
God.
after your postgrad?
Yeah, after the media course, I think it's now called journalism now. Yeah, I actually worked in television. That was the first job I ever got. That was a really interesting story. While I was on the course, we'd get industry professionals coming in and telling us how to get in television. And one of those was Bernard Clark, and he ran a production company called Clark Productions. And unbelievably, I actually saw him on the tube, and he got off at Baker Street, and I followed him up the escalator. And I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, oh, you came to talk to us recently. Can you give me a job? And he did. And I ended up working on a current affairs program called Hard News, which was really a big deal for me because that was the program that we all watched on the course. You know, it was the program to watch. So to actually work on there as a journalist was an incredible experience for me. And basically I was working as a journalist for a good number of years until I had an epiphany moment, but I want to talk about that a bit later, the second part of my Westminster journey. But sort of like fast forwarding to 2015, I decided to set up my own company because I was working at Shell International at the time doing their social media, and I thought I want to branch out on my own, and I did that. And since then I've been working, running my company Fruit Social, and we have a number of clients, including Deloitte and various sort of like tech startups as well. So I go from sort of like small companies to really large ones as well, and basically specialise in social media marketing.
And Paul.
Okay, hi. So I haven't started my own business, and I don't run my own business or anything impressive like that. And so I did a degree in history, so not anything much to do with creativity, really. But I got a job in TV. I got a job eventually at the BBC, and that was how you did it in those days. You know, you went sort of cap in hand to somewhere like the BBC, and if they liked you, you know, you'd get a job. So I did, in terms of the sort of creative management stuff, I became like a producer, director. I worked on a lot of TV shows. I had to manage little teams of people to get a TV show out on time, and I spent sleepless nights in Doncaster thinking, oh, nothing's happening. And then I ran a sort of development team, which was like developing, this is in the era of formats and all of that, so developing factual formats to try and get jobs for people, you know, commissions. And then I sort of thought, well, I'm a bit old for all of this now, so I thought I'll be a teacher. So that's when I came to Westminster, and we've got a couple of courses which are about media and business. Because as well as doing a history degree, I'd done a sort of business kind of postgraduate thing. And so, yeah, started thinking a lot about how you actually combine the things that you guys are actually doing, how you combine creativity with making money. What you know, how do those two things work together? And so we got some money to run this Creative Enterprise Centre, and that's about trying to help students do that and alumni do that, but particularly students do it while they're on the course, just work out, you know, what it is I want to do and how do I get someone to pay me money to do it. So that's it.
Thank you. Sounds really interesting. I think we've got some videos prepared for us. So this is about...
So basically, this shows all the different types of work that we do for different clients. And by the way, the music's intentional because we find that if we use a particular song, it attracts certain people to our company and it makes other people just scared of us. So it's all intentional. And because I was saying to Bravish that it's best we really enjoy it when we work with people that have the same kind of mindset, not necessarily like the same age range, but just a particular type of mentality in a client. So obviously if you play that and they contact you afterwards, or they say, oh, we liked your show, Will, do you know, okay, that's the right type of client that we should be working with. Or if they say, oh my goodness, that was a bit out there, do you know, then that may not be a match made in heaven. So anything you see is all intentional.
Next up, we have Joan's video.
Absolutely, and that's where the mistakes a lot of companies make. They feel they need to be on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, etc., etc. And essentially, it's curling down and understanding who your target market is, and finding out which channel that particular demographic is on, and really sort of like building your campaign around it.
We actually admitted, not only we admit things, but we admitted that we spread ourselves way too thin at the very beginning. Yeah. And kind of trying to do everything. So now we kind of concentrate on Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, and then Mark does Tinder. Yeah.
Tell me, what's the return of investment?
So we go want to know.
I'll let you know off camera.
So what makes you guys different?
Basically, it's about take small companies, they can't afford to use a big swanky agency, surely, and that's where someone like me comes in.
Yeah.
So what I can do, I can really give them that personal service and really show them, educate, not just show them how to get their brand on, but show them the tools in which to do it so they can hopefully go and do it themselves. So I go through them in terms of how to create their own social media marketing campaign, which a lot of companies won't teach them how to do that because that's kind of like the knowledge that they want to keep to themselves.
Yeah.
But my attitude is, no, let me show you how to do it, let me empower you, and that's what it's about, empowering lots of companies to do that.
Amazing. And there's thousands of startups watching this at the minute. And how do they get in touch?
Yeah, they can basically go on my website, www.fruitsocial.co, and basically what they get is a free initial consultation, which is fantastic. You basically get to understand each other, see if there's chemistry there, potentially you can work together, and then you hopefully go off and create something really fantastic.
Guys, check it out. This is the Pop-Up Studio, and that was Fruit Social.
Excellent. Very busy, both of you, since graduating. So moving on to the themes. So after each theme, you will have an opportunity to ask some questions to our panel. Remembering we are tight for time, but at the end of all the themes, you will also get another Q&A, which we can be more flexible with on time. So firstly, the first theme is, what is creativity? So starting with Paul, what is creativity?
Okay. Well, so don't read a book about creativity because they're all terrible. I've tried reading lots of them. But just look at those 2 bits of video that we saw there, and you'll see that in some ways you kind of knew, once you'd watched them for a second or two, you knew what they were. So you knew that Will's was a show reel. Yeah, you've gone to a website, you've seen that kind of thing before. But as Will says, well, I'll come back to his points about the music. And the thing Joan was in, you knew that was a sort of interview. Do you know what I mean? That's that thing, you've got 2 cameras, chat, chat, chat. So creativity is not doing something no one's ever done before. I would call that experimentalism. You know, that's when you go into a sort of art gallery and you hear some screeching, flashing light thing, and you either think it's brilliant or you just think, what the hell's that? Creativity's about doing stuff that there's rules for. You know, there's rules about how you shoot an interview, roughly. There's rules about what a show reel does. But it's not just blindly following rules, otherwise it wouldn't be creative. Creativity is about using those rules, but getting our attention, or getting the attention of the audience that you want. So that's where Will's point about the music comes in. Because he knows he could put, or my point about banging the microphone. He knows he could put kind of lovely music on, but that's not going to grab the attention of the type of audience that he wants. And in his case, it's not also going to put off all those people he doesn't want. And so, you know, you think about the great sort of TV shows that you've seen, something like Game of Thrones. It's a sort of fantasy thing. It's going to have wizards, it's going to have swords and all that kind of thing. But what makes it get our attention is the things that set it apart from all those other ones that we've seen. You know, it's got this Macbeth thing where everyone wants to be king and they're all prepared to kill their own family to do it. And then it's got a sort of modern thing, which is all of them are doing this, trying to be king, while there's this sort of Armageddon coming along, going to kind of wipe them all out, this winter is coming thing. And that sort of feels like politics today. You know, you've got all these politicians fighting with each other, and yet we've got a sense that the whole world's going to hell in a handcart. So I think that's what I think about being creativity. Taking the things that we understand, giving them to us because we like them, we like stories, we like jazzy videos with music, we like factual interviews about stuff, but doing it in a way that gets our attention because it seems relevant. It seems to communicate something that a generic romantic comedy or fantasy sort of film wouldn't do, because you've made it anew. You've made it in a way that feels like it's right for now. Sort of thing.
Great. So to add to that, what is the difference between creativity and innovation? Joan?
God, that's a really excellent question. I think creativity I think we all have an innate creativity as human beings, certainly. But I think in terms of innovation, it's in terms of marketing, we call it zigzag. So when everybody zigs, you zag. So it's basically doing something a bit different. So in terms of creativity, it's about established rules, without a doubt. But I think within innovation, you've got to go beyond those rules. You've got to kind of flip it on its head. And you've got to be essentially different. And I think that's where innovation comes in. And I think particularly that's where social media marketing comes in, because it really has the scope and the air in the space for you to be really, really innovative, without doubt.
William, and adding to that as well, how can you tell if someone is creative or not?
I mean, I think when it comes to creativity, I think you can easily see it. When I see someone's work, I can tell if they're creative if it's different or it's new. And for someone that's not creative, is someone that kind of just copies someone else, but copying it in a bad way. I would say that's the difference, you know. I mean, my view on creativity is like an idea to make something or make anything. I would say, you know. I think going back to my video, you know, I did that video in 2015, and before then I'd worked with big companies. I'd worked with O2, Unilever, Karen Millen, Boohoo, Kent County Council, Mindshare, Warner Music, Graham Daly. So I worked with a nice range of clients that I wanted to work with, but I know I wanted more. And I thought to myself, well, I looked at other different show reels, and they were very safe, they were very nice, but I thought to myself, A, it isn't me, and B, I don't want to copy what these guys have done. You know, the whole reason why people come to me is because I'm different, and my creativity is different. The show that you saw, okay, the music is a bit crazy, and it's quite fast-paced, but that's what people want to see. People want to see something different or new. So I hope that answers your question, like creativity, I guess. So if someone's work is creative, you can just tell. You can just be like, oh my goodness, what is this, you know? As opposed to, oh, I think I've already seen that from someone else, or that's been copied like 5,000 times.
Okay, and you can ask some questions now on this theme. What is creativity and innovation, and what do you guys view creativity or not creativity? Do you have any questions?
Or like contributions, anyone think?
Yeah, any additional perspectives?
Hi, thanks for the talk. I just wanted to ask, I know you talked about, maybe not necessarily copying, but sometimes when I think about my creative process, I look for inspiration, and I just wonder where the line is between copying and being inspired.
I mean, we get inspiration everywhere. I mean, I'm inspired just being here now and just seeing the beautiful people in this room. But sometimes, I get inspiration from walking down the street, inspiration from people that I speak to, reading books. I think, we all get bits of inspiration everywhere that forms into something completely new. That's fine. I think that's totally fine. We have to do that. We have to take whatever we see in the world and put it into our own. But I think copying is when you literally just take in someone's whole idea, not even changed it word for word, and just be like, and then change it to be something that's your own. I think that's copying. Inspiration is a bit more wide than that.
Mm. Any more questions or contributions?
So would you kind of say that it's about being more original in terms of with being original, then captivating the correct audience based on that, as opposed to trying to find a specific audience that you're able to kind of do the work for that you do in terms of designing these?
Yeah, I would agree. I guess if you take anything out in the world and then you put it into your subconscious and then you build something from that is original. That is your work.
Sure.
So I guess being original, I would say being original and being creative is the same kind of thing.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thanks.
Great. We're going to move on to the next theme, but save your questions, and we're going to have a Q&A after all the themes have been discussed. So the next theme we're going to talk about is changing landscape. That is the changing landscape across the creative industries. Starting with Will, how has the creative and social landscape of clients and consumers changed over the last 10 years, would you say?
Yeah, it's changed a lot. So I said to you before, in 2005, I started my own limited company. There was no Facebook then. There was no Twitter. Instagram wasn't there. So I started my business in a pre-social era, where I guess you had to kind of look harder for inspiration and different things. Where now you've got the internet, you've got social media. You can literally go on Instagram and just like hashtag fashion, and you can find loads of different images, or you can hashtag whatever you want and find what you want. It's much easier. We're as a world, we're way more interconnected. And also, I would say that you get way more influences. I think before, again, 2005, I would say for influence, I guess it was way more limited to, I guess, the people that I knew, books, going to art galleries. But I think now you've got that plus the internet, which I think it's changed a lot. And I think as well, in terms of clients, I guess now that we've got social media, I think clients are way more demanding because they can see everything as well. I think before, I guess they saw less, so you could present them with an idea, and they'd be like, if they didn't see it before, they'd be like, okay, yes, that's amazing, we'll pay you for this. Where now you can send them an idea, and they could go straight onto their phone and be like, well, what about this, Will? What about this? So it has changed. So clients are more demanding now because they can see more things. So I guess you have to be even more original and be more creative to please clients.
Adding to that, Joan and Paul, how has technology disrupted both advertising and media industries? So William kind of touched on that with the internet. Joan, how has, especially in the social media and realm of things,
Absolutely, it's the entry level has just become so low now, because we were having this little discussion earlier, weren't we, that before companies need to have a massive marketing budget just to make any sort of like breakthrough. Now all they need to do really is set up the relevant social media channels, create a strategy, and have dynamic content, and they can almost cut out the middleman, basically, and speak directly to their customers. So I think it's really been incredibly disruptive, but in a very, very good way. I mean, I would say that, wouldn't I? Because I'm in social media. But just to sort of like, just to talk about, can I just quickly talk about in terms of landscape changing? 10 years ago, I was working as a marketing person in a law firm, and they actually banned people using Facebook. They said it was a distraction and we're not going to let anybody use it apart from people in the marketing department. And this was just 10 years ago. I mean, now practically every professional services company has somebody, has a head of digital, head of social media, and a team whose job is to, create the content and post it and, provide the analytics on it. So in terms of that particular journey, from my personal perspective, it certainly has come a long way. They understand that they need to be in this space, really.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. So when I got into TV, in order to work in TV, you had to go to a big company that owned all the kit. If you wanted to make that little interview and broadcast it, that startup van interview, you'd have needed millions of quid of equipment, and you'd need your own transmitter. You'd need to be one of the main TV channels when I started. And so you only got anywhere by the patronage of somebody else, by somebody else saying, yeah, we'll give you a chance, we'll give you a shot, we'll take a risk on you. Whereas now, those guys can do the startup van thing, and maybe it succeeds, maybe it doesn't, but they can do that themselves. You know, that all of the technology of communication is now open, you know, available. And so on the one hand, that means that any of you wanting to having an idea and wanting to realize that, you know, has probably got 10 years advantage over someone my age when I started. You know, going out from, you kind of paid your dues and you got through, you can realize that thing straight away. The sort of slight downside is so can everyone else. So I think the opportunity to do creative things, to start up creative businesses, you know, that's what's disrupted everything. The ability of everyone. There was a bloke called Clay Shirky wrote called Here Comes Everyone, you know. But what you need in that sort of world is the ability to gain attention. You know, there's quite a good book called Attention Economics, and it basically says that, you know, in the creative industries, we don't drill things out of the ground, we don't use the physical science. The knowledge we use is the ability to get people's attention. And that's what you need that even more now, which is what the guys were saying, because there's so much else out there crowding things out.
I agree. There's so much white noise. So you have to cut through the white noise even more now. But I think one thing that I've noticed over the years, so from when I started from 2005 to now, I find that the social confidence has definitely shifted over the years. I find when I first got into the industry, there was way more interesting people that had more of a confidence or just the balls to do things, just to go out there, this is how we're going to do it, this is where we're going to do it, this is how we're going to get paid. Where I feel now, I don't really understand why, because you've got way more, you've got loads of inspiration, you've got way more inspiration than we've ever had. There's way more places you could get inspiration, but you find way more people that are not confident, who are unwilling to take risks, who are what's the word? They are risk averse. That's the word. Way more risk averse, which I don't really understand that.
Do you think this is a generational thing?
I don't know. Maybe, possibly.
Yeah.
But what's changed since in a decade ago? What has changed socially in the 10 years?
Audience have a view why maybe more
Maybe it's
risk-averse.
that thing, the credit crunch.
I think so, actually. I think.
Actually, I think it's because there is so much choice. You get, sorry, yeah.
What I see, I coach, and what I see is that there is now so much choice. You almost have paralysis about what to choose to do.
Yeah.
So I think that whole thing about the noise, it's how do you choose and be willing to fail? Because the school system teaches you it's wrong to fail. So the two things together, I think that's where the lack of confidence is.
Anyone else have a view on the changing landscape and
Are you all dead confident? Maybe Will's wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
any risk-averse people and
Lady
good
at the back.
reason to be risk-averse?
Yeah, laid at the back.
Hi, I don't know if I'm one of the youngest people here, but I think like in this generation, I can understand where my age group might be risk averse. Just because, yes, you can have an idea and you may want to expand on that, but at the same time, do you have a team that's following and is it really secure? So it's more likely they may want to go to something that's more stable than join an upcoming idea because of that. Not everyone is like that, so there are people that distinguish from that, but I'm just saying, being a part of the millennials, you know, there's a lot of people who have ideas, but adding on to what the lady said, how many of that do well? So sometimes it's easier just to take the stable road.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next theme, but please keep your thoughts on being risk-averse and the changing landscape for the last Q&A. So the next session is having a vision, and I think this ties quite well with the previous regarding what is being creative or what is creativity in the changing landscape. Specifically, Will made a point saying that in his experience, even though the landscape has changed so much, he's still getting companies and brands approaching his agency asking how can they look cool, how can they be forward thinking towards their audience, how can they be kind of the brand of now. So Will, can you explain why this still matters? Why is it important for companies to look cool right now?
I guess everyone wants to be cool. Everyone wants to be that cool person in the party. Everyone wants to be that person that everyone just kind of arose around with that energy. So that can apply to brands. Brands need to be cool because that's what makes them popular. I mean, Mike Skinner from the street said to me once, it's just a popularity contest. And to an extent it is, like, because everyone wants to be that person. Everyone wants to kind of present themselves or offer themselves to be the best product. So I guess with that in mind, that's why I guess I still have a job, and I still have clients coming to me saying, "Hi Will, we don't know what we're doing, we're not too sure what we want, but we just want it to be cool. Can you help us?" And that would be a lot of briefs, you know. And unfortunately, I mean, going to the second part of the question, why it's important for creative bosses to have a vision, is because a lot of people come to me and they know what they want, but they don't have the ideas. So it's for me or for the company to go out there and say, look, this is what I think you should do. You should do X, Y, Z. You know, and we've been lucky to have, I've been fortunate to have, to work with people that are on the same mindset as me, who are very creative, that can push the coolness, I guess, or create something from nothing, which is cool or important or emotional. And also another thing as well is, another thing that people like, not everyone, but I'd say that a lot of people like to aspire, you know. When I was growing up, all I really cared about was like a nice car or Moschino jeans, or just like going out spending like money on champagne, because I'm a very aspirational person. Like I love people that do really well. They don't even need to have money, but just so I like speaking to people that are either positive or really doing well, or just do really well like financially. And I think the same thing applies to brands as well. Like, brands want to kind of sell that aspiration. Not all brands, but you find that a lot of brands that I work with, they do want to operate in a way where they sell their product or their service in a premium kind of way. I had a conversation with my friends yesterday, and I said to him, what would you prefer to have? An egg and cress sandwich or swordfish? And most people will always want to have the swordfish because that's the most appealing. And again, that applies to brands. Brands want to just be they want to be the aspirational, they want to be the coolest thing out there. So hence that's why it's still important.
Okay, so it's all about kind of appealing to people's self-actualization desires and making them think or aspire to be bigger than they are at that point in time.
Yeah, or pushing or betterment. So providing a service or product that helps people be the best person of themselves. You know, I think, in my opinion, I don't think we spend enough time thinking about the things that we can do to make ourselves better, you know.
Paul and Joan, so why do you think it is important for creative bosses to have a vision for its clients and staff?
Well, I think it's to differentiate you from the competition, essentially. And also as well, it's about telling what your brand story is, your brand story as your company, and how you're selling it to your clients. For example, my particular specialism is recruitment marketing, using social media to hire top talent. And that's a very niche thing, but it's something that very few companies and individuals can do. And I think that sort of like separates Fruit Social from a lot of the other companies. And it's actually sort of like taking clients on a journey as well and saying to them, you know, this is where you are, you know, where do you want to be? And this is how we get there. Basically, these are the steps that we have to take. Yeah, so that's, in a sense, you're kind of like selling them the dream, basically. You know, and I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I was talking to a student today, and she was having a bit of a rough time. And her parents didn't understand what she was doing and all of that kind of stuff. And I said, well, have you ever tried to tell them what you want to be in 10 years' time? You know, just what would it be? And she came up with this kind of bizarre, sort of brilliant job. And I said, well, you know, maybe think about just communicating that to them, and what would they say? And she said they'd all go, they'd hate it, and, you know, my dad would say you'll never do it, and it's nonsense and all the rest of it. And I said, okay, well, think about that, you know, then, so instead of losing your temper with him, or like thinking, oh God, I'll never do it, what do you do next? What do you say to him after you've communicated that grandiose vision of what you're going to be in the future? And she started to think about it, and you know, I had a similar sort of moment. So I was doing my postgraduate thing in business. I was in the back of a cab. I'd done a history degree and a business postgraduate degree, and we'd been to a party, and someone said, what do you want to do? Some of my friends who'd left college. And I said, I want to be a film director. It just came out like that. And they just all like burst out laughing because, you know, I didn't know the first thing about it. And you might say, looking at my career, I never learned the first thing about it. But I sort of think, you know, going back to Will's point about, you know, this idea of the best version of ourselves or whatever it is, I think what we do, the thing about a vision is it's a lot less than all of these words I've just said. You know what I mean? If you can distill what it is you want, what you want to achieve, where you're going, into something very short and succinct, into 3 words or something, it's a brilliant way to communicate with everyone and to find out who else wants to go with you on that journey. And so I think the reason, you know, one reason for them is, in terms of cutting through all that white noise, what you're trying to do is say, what about this? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be fantastic? And see who kind of comes back with stuff.
Great. Do we have any questions or additional perspectives to the importance of vision? Anyone here with a creative business, a creative boss, where vision is very important to their business? Yeah, one more question. Back there.
Coming from a creative part-time job I do, I'm part of Levi's, I wouldn't necessarily say as a brand store we adhere just to be cool. Like the lady said on the panel, it's about telling the clients the journey and also the history of Levi's. So the reason why you have the traditional 501s and then you have the new tailor fit is because it's to also be able to accommodate all different types of clients. So the new generation, the old generation within that story, and also different types of brands tend to like to go different types of ways. So being at Tommy Hilfiger, it was a digital innovation way. And that's why Gigi Hadid, as one of the ambassadors, her clothing was a part of it because he wanted to be able to sell into the young market and the old market. So coming from a brand perspective and having worked within brand stores and them having a creative vision, it's more about longevity and, like Will said, who can follow and who wants to be able to add on to that journey by 3 succinct words. But I definitely do not agree it's about being cool, because the kind of money that goes through these purchases, the high clientele of it, and people that wear the clothing to either want to better themselves, it's more than that. You know, it's all about how you feel and that appeal. But I don't think they stem just to be cool. I think they do it more to show you the journey of their brands and how far they've come and what they want to do now.
Yeah, I agree. I think like, but having a story is cool. I know what you're saying. That I understand what you're saying. You can't just do a cool campaign and then expect, okay, we're going to be on top of the world. I do agree with you. It has to having a story, have some sort of angle that you can build into like a campaign or into the company or into a brand. I do agree with you. I do think it's important, and I understand what you're saying, that you can't just do something. You can't just have like just a couple of Instagram posts which are cool, and that's gonna change things. So I definitely agree with what you're saying with the Levi's thing. It's like building a story, building like a vision, And that's what I guess that's why people buy into certain brands as well. So yeah, I agree with you.
Had one more question over there.
Oh, it's a bit of a question and an observation. I mean, I kind of agreed with what she said, and I also agreed with what you said about brands wanting to be cool. But I think it's usually the idea of a lifestyle that most brands try to sell you, or the idea of prestige. I mean, no brand's ever going to sell you something that they think is not good or great. You know, Apple sell you the idea of prestige. If you have an iPhone, you're prestige. You know, if you've got an iPad, MacBook, you've got the whole family, you know, you're part of this exclusive network of people who have these things. And if you don't have these things, then who the hell are you? You know, the same as BMW and all these other brands. They always want to sell you this idea, this lifestyle, and people buy into that. But I guess my question would be, for you, specifically you, what did you want to sell with your product to people? Because I mean, I want to eventually go and do my own business, but you know, trying to market to people is a difficult thing, especially when you're starting, especially when you're a student. You know, no one takes you seriously. But if you want to be taken seriously, I mean, how did you start off?
Well, so the question is, how did I start off?
How did you start off marketing to people, making sure that you know you got the right people who you wanted to sell to?
To be fair, when I first started, actually, I didn't go out to anyone. To be fair, someone came to me. It was one of my close friends who is a client of mine as well. Give you a bit of a backstory. My background is in art. Like I can draw, I can paint, I can sculpture, but my mum didn't want me to do art at university. Neither graphic design, nothing non-academic. She said to me, no, you're going to University of Westminster, you're doing a business studies degree, or accounting, or finance, end of story. That's it, right? But my close friend knew that I was good at art. He knew that I was, I just had Photoshop. He knew that I was into creativity and stuff. So he said to me, oh, I'm doing like an event at university. I want you to do the flyer for me. And I did the flyer for him. It turned out quite great. And then off the back of that, someone else said to me, oh, I like what you did for your friend. Can you do me a flyer for this night? He gave me like a bit of a brief, and I kind of had an idea in my head what it should look like, because I'm a party person. Like I know what a good party should look like. So I just basically designed it in a way where it'd be like a party that I'd want to go to. And then we did the flyer. It was quite successful. This was like 2006, and then off the back of that, more and more people came to me and said, "Oh, I saw what you did for this person. Can you do that for me?" And it just kind of built from there. And I guess, but because that I delivered on the first piece of work, and it had an effect, I think people just like took me seriously straight away. And I think that's something that that's something that I've always done over the years up to now. Like everything that I do it with care and with purpose. Like I don't do anything washed. I don't do anything just to make money. I don't think I could forgive myself if I put something out there that was like hurried or not to the best of my abilities. And I guess with that, you get the respect and you get the acknowledgement from your clients and from your peers.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Okay, moving on to the next theme, social media marketing, right? Joan's section. So, Joan, you said this was something that you really wanted to kind of discuss and get to the bottom of, and we had this conversation earlier on, and one thing I observe a lot is that students don't quite comprehend what the word social media marketing actually means. It's not just putting content up. There is more to it. It's a science, it's a strategic approach. So kind of give us more information on that.
Absolutely. Can I just give you a little backstory about how I got into it? I got into social media marketing around about 2010. I was hired by King's University because of my journalism background, and I'd been working as a copywriter. And they needed somebody to create content on their social media channels. And so ostensibly they just hired me because I was a copywriter. And so I ended up managing all their channels. And I just found myself in seventh heaven because I was combining my passion for technology, as a direct result of the MA Hypermedias studies course, and also my journalism background, my writing. So it was like those twin passions of the journalism and the technology, combining the two. And I love the fact that it's so instantaneous. You know, when I worked in publishing, it seemed like it took forever to get the magazine together, to get it take to the printers and on the magazine racks, and the whole process was just long. Yeah, but with social media, it's complete instant gratification. You know, it's just great. That's the joy of it. You know, you can see the results right there. And but also as well, I teach part-time media at Harrow College, and currently we're doing a module on interactive media. And so they've created some radio podcasts, and now they're having to create campaigns to post on social media. Now I've had to drill into them that this is so different to running your own social media accounts, okay? When you run your own social media accounts, you put up a picture and then that's it, okay? But when you're doing it on a professional scale, you've got to have a plan. You've got to think about what's your primary goal. Is it to get more likes? Is it to get more shares, more comments? You know, what is it that you're trying to get out of it? You know, who's your target audience? And related to that, which channels are you going to be posting your content on? Yeah, all these things related. And you've got to create an editorial calendar to plan all your content, and when is it going to go out? Yeah, so all of these things have got to be taken into consideration. So it's an art and a science. Yeah, you've really got to be strategic when you're creating social media marketing at the end of the day. And ultimately as well, you've got to say to yourself, what does success look like? How do I know this campaign has been successful? And the joy of social media is that you can finesse your campaign. So if something isn't quite working, you can switch and do something a bit different, you know. And yeah, I'm a real, anybody who knows me, a couple of you here, I'm a complete social media junkie from a personal perspective. You know, I have about 4 different accounts, you know, and I live it, you know, at the end of the day. And I feel that when I speak to, you know, potential clients, I feel that I can almost exude that passion, that joy, and they can kind of feel it and sense it as well. Because with business, they always want return on investment at the end of the day. And because of the analytics, you know, behind it, you can show them that. You can show clients. So, for example, at Shell, what's one of my favourite examples, when I first worked at Shell, they had 3,000 followers on their careers channel, which was pretty pathetic considering it's a large multinational corporation. And the recruiters were just using it as a glorified jobs board, you know, and in about sort of like 18 months that grew to 40,000, and that was mostly through organic, not even paid advertising. It's because, you know, I was being strategic, you know, who were the target audience on this particular channel, and creating the content that would appeal to them, you know, and once a client can see that, can see the result, that's when they want to put the money into it, you know. So, and you can do that with all the analytics, which is really, really important, you know, because you've got to kind of like, with, I don't know with your clients, but with big corporations, you know, they want to see sort of bang for their buck at the end of the day.
The return, yeah.
Absolutely.
What's your opinion on social media influencers? Do you have influencers? Do you respect it? Or what's your views?
To be honest, I don't know, it's a bit Marmite, really, if I'm being honest. I guess it depends on what your kind of like brand story is, and if you feel that particular influencer can bring something to the table. But I'm a much bigger fan of creating in-house dynamic content and pushing it out and getting people in as brand ambassadors, getting the ordinary Joe public to push out your content and help you and help them, you know, use them as sort of like key influencers basically, and acting as brand evangelizers.
Okay, so you prefer ambassadors than to just random influencers?
Absolutely. I think, you know, because ambassadors, they're passionate. Yeah. Absolutely. You know.
Absolutely. The first thing Joan said, I love it, and I was like, that's great. So I'm going to link into that. Will, how important is social media and digital marketing to a creative business? And kind of drawing from what you've just said, when I'm engaging with students, often they have that dilemma of, can I be an influencer as a strategy to grow my business? So if I'm, especially when they're going down the marketing, through marketing myself and showing I'm the school person, can I transition that into what my business is? So in your experience, again, what is your view on influencers, since you asked that question to Joan, and to how important is social media and digital marketing?
I think social media influencers, I think the ones that are actually doing it for the right cause, I respect. But the problem is that I find that social media influencers are now the new PTs. I don't know about you guys, but there was a time where everyone that I knew was a PT for no reason, just to get girls. Yeah. Now, fast forward, every guy that I know, oh yeah, I'm a social media influencer. It's like, how can I take someone seriously when just like 2 minutes ago you were like a PT? I kind of find that, I feel like influencers are now the buzz kind of like career. And I guess
it's true actually.
It's a risk with that because again, you could get a good client who wants to spend a bit of money on social media, and the last thing you want to do is just get someone that you think is an influencer, but he just bought followers, and it doesn't convert.
Absolutely.
And then the client's angry at you, saying, "Well, we spent £20,000, and we already got 2% conversion. What's going on?" So I find influencers a bit of it's a risk, but I think social media as a strategy is important. So in a couple of years ago, there was a luxury leather jacket company called Bodeskins. They're based in Manchester, and they came to me saying, "Look, we want content for our social medias. We're relying too much on user-generated content. What do you think we should do?" And I said, "Look, stop relying on user-generated content, because you can't, as a strategy, you can't wait until someone posts up a nice picture and then use it. Like, that's not really a strategy. Why don't you just why don't we create content for you only, put the jackets in a nice light, work with particular people that are in the industry, and let's build a strategy together." And I think when I started working with Bodeskins, I think they only had about 120,000 followers on Instagram, and then fast forward now, I've only worked with them for like maybe less than a year, and now they're on 225, 230, and they've not bought followers. It's literally organic growth. So it's definitely replicating on the sales as well. So I think social media is important, but you just have to be careful not to rely on it too much, and not just get any random person that says they're an influencer to help you.
Just to make a quick point about UGC, I think user-generated content can work if you're running a sort of competition or stuff like that. I think it really does work, but as William said, if you're just relying on it for your content, then you're just going to go down a rabbit hole, I think. Yeah,
and it's a risk because, especially again, Bodeskins, it's luxury. It's not like Prada or Hermes, but it's like premium high street. So their jackets are twice as much as All Saints. So the content has to kind of link into the brand and the pricing. So you can't just put, like, I remember they showed me some photos of some random guy from Germany posting up pictures. "Oh, why don't we just use that?" And I said, "No, like you can't. Like the photo was blurred, and it was just a mess." And I said to him, "Look, if you use this content, it's not going to put you in the right light. It's just going to have a negative effect." And because we're all interconnected, people are just going to see that more easier. So you really have to be careful,
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to maintain your brand integrity on social media, because it's so easily, once it's lost, it's very hard to get it back, really. So that's really important. Which is why, just quickly, a lot of companies don't do, and they should do this. They should have brand guidelines in terms of, and I've created them for some of my clients, about what they should and shouldn't post on social media, and also look at colours as well. How they use brand colours on social media, that type of thing. Yeah. So basically, the thing is, what you want to get is that whoever in the company's posting that content, it doesn't matter, because it has that singular voice. Yeah, the company brand voice, which is really, really important.
can I just ask the audience something quickly, just a quick poll. What is your general view on social media? I want to know if it's positive, neutral, or negative. How many people, raise your hands, who think social media is generally positive? Okay, what about neutral? And then what about negative? Okay, so more positive,
More positive and neutral,
positive, yeah.
positive, neutral.
Yeah.
Paul, do you have anything to?
No, not really. They're brilliant.
Any questions regarding social media? Yep, over here we've got a question. Oh.
We were just talking about the changing landscapes. Is there, or has there been a change in the social media landscape over the last few years? Are we moving away from Facebook and more towards things like Instagram, or?
Well, it depends on the demographic. In terms of millennials, definitely. I mean, for example, my students, they're between 16 and 18. I don't think any of them has a Facebook account. Because most of their time they're on Snapchat and Insta. Those are their primary channels. So absolutely, I think the landscape is certainly changing, and obviously everything's mobile first. I mean, most people interact with social media on their smartphones. Very few people actually use desktops now, really. So I think in terms of talking about the younger generation, I think, yeah, it's ever evolving. But more and more channels are sort of springing up all the time, really. And I, sort of like, what happens is I get a client, they say, oh, we need to be on XYZ channel. I'm thinking, well, you sort of need to get the basics right first. So, for example, I had a client saying, oh, we need to be on Snapchat because everybody's on Snapchat. I'm thinking, well, you're not even getting Facebook right, So, so I think, basically the landscape's changing. But, you've got to, when you're dealing with a sort of particular target demographic, it's important to figure out which channel are they using most. So there's no point, trying to target 18-year-olds on Facebook because you'll be wasting your time. So I think that's really important. That's important thing that I always drive home to my clients, where are your target audience and go where they are.
Okay, we had one question here as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, hi. Regarding social media, it's kind of like you may not want to wear pants, but you do because everyone else is, and this is no longer working. You wear pants because everyone else is. It's socially acceptable. It's expected. And you do it because everyone else is. I have a couple of clients, for example, who have social media presence. They have zero expectations of it. They don't consider it to be crucial to their business. They have it purely because everyone else does. And they feel that if they're a business and they're going to be taken seriously, then they should have a presence. They spend money on it. And I find that very frustrating because I think to myself, you're spending money on it, you should have some sort of target. And I speak to them and I say, what's your expectations? We have no expectations, we're just there because what would you do?
They are absolutely crying out for some sort of strategy, really, aren't they?
We'll speak later.
Yeah.
We had one more question and then we'll move on to the next section just over here. Yeah.
Thank you. You spoke briefly about the different aspects of social media. So it's not just content creation, it's also about strategy and analytics. I just wanted to get your views on the best tools out there. So, for example, there is Hootsuite, just from your perspective, and also yours, Will, actually. So the tools that you couldn't live without.
Yeah, there are loads of tools out here, but one of my faves was Adobe Social, because not only could you get the deep analytics, you could also, it has a listening tool. So, for example, if you typed in, Shell, Arctic drilling or whatever, you could see all the chatter around that particular topic, yeah? Or you could type in BP, and see what they're saying about your competitors, yeah? So in a sense, it's really very clever. It's kind of like one-stop shop to do all your analytics, as well as all your social listening, as well as all your posting as well. But of course, you've got Hootsuite and all the others as well. So, but I think, using a sort of social media content management tool is very, very important.
Well, I'm not a social media expert. I think Joan isn't, and we mainly make content for social. So we can advise on strategies, but I don't. But that's more Joan's lane. But in terms of tools that I use for the company, I mean, I think my top 3, or say it's top 4, or maybe top 5 actually. I think Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator for me is a must. Like I use them every day without fail for everything. And I think After Effects for motion graphics, and it's good. It's a good editing software as well. And I think for the 5th one, I mean, you can use Photoshop, but it takes ages. But I use Capture One for photography, so they would be my top 5. But really, if I was on an island and I need to do some work, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, they're the top 3.
Also as well, just a little point in terms of content, that in terms of if you're uploading videos on social media, I think it's really important to upload them natively. So don't upload videos on YouTube and then post a YouTube link to Facebook, an example. Try and upload it, natively within Facebook and Twitter. You'll get more views.
Interesting. So moving on to the next section.
How are we doing for time?
All right, we're all right. And this is ideas and business. So starting with Paul, how do we have new ideas? Where do new ideas come from? Kind of from my perspective, how do we give confidence to students to come up with ideas and follow through with those ideas?
Yeah, so we were talking about sort of how you cut through all of that noise. And I think that's what how do you recognise something's creative? Well, it's really hard. In the old days when there were like 3 TV channels in the UK, it was really easy to spot a new idea. I've been reading about, there was a guy who died yesterday who came out with that TV series Hill Street Blues, Stephen Bochco, 1981, before you were all born. But it kind of shook everyone because it was so different, because there was nothing else like it, and you knew there was nothing else like it because you could see the other 3 channels. Now there's just like an infinity of content there. So how do you come up with something which tries to get that sort of effect, that kind of recognition? And I think it is going back to Joan's differentiation between innovation and creativity. So creativity is doing the thing that we expect and trying to do it well. And I think innovation, a new idea, is trying to do something we don't quite expect. So if you think there are rules about all the things that we talked about that interview Joan was in, about Will's showreel, whatever it is you're trying to do, there's a set of rules. And the way you have a new idea is you think about breaking them or changing them or adapting them or bringing in a rule from somewhere else. And so again, in TV, the whole kind of TV format thing that happened was about taking ideas about what were factual programs, documentaries and things like that, and then bringing in rules from entertainment, like sort of game shows. So you got Big Brother, or scripting things, so bringing in rules from drama, and you get things like First Dates or Chelsea or whatever it is. So I think that's, one way to have new ideas is to look at the way everyone else is doing it, really analyse who are your competitors. Who else is doing the thing that you want to do? Look at the way that they're achieving how they're doing it well, and thinking, if I'm doing it for a different audience, or if I'm going to do it slightly differently, how would I revolutionise that? How would I give that audience what they really want, but somehow just turn the whole idea on its head? And I think if you start doing that, looking at what other people are doing in the space you want to be, and then seeing how you can change the rules of what they're doing, that's the first way to differentiate yourself and maybe get some attention people might give you.
And kind of building onto that, Joan and Will, how do you take and turn new ideas into successful new businesses?
God, for me, I've wanted to run my own sort of company. I've run companies previously. I'm sort of like one of these serial entrepreneurs, but I was at Shell, as I mentioned earlier, and I wanted to run my own agency because I thought, you know, I can do this. Yeah, I'm doing it now. I can do it on my own type thing. And it's interesting, actually. The biggest sort of pain, I think, was actually, you know, trying to think of a name for the company. And it was one of those sort of moments where I was in the, you know, I was in the bathroom and I saw a little soap dispenser thing and it had on it fruit. And I'm like, fruit social. That makes sense because, you know, you can get return on your investment in terms of, you know, bearing fruit. Bing, Bob went up, so quickly went on the laptop and registered the name at Company's House and bought the URL, domain name. And but for me, the ideas, they come, they're there, they're in the atmosphere. And when I think of an idea, I quickly write it down, and I think, you know, and I just sort of gestate over it, and I think, you know, does this potentially have legs? Kind of work it through, you know, which is what I did with Fruit Social. You know, wrote a business plan and spoke to some potential clients about it, and they thought, yeah, you know, I think this is a great idea, what you're doing. So, so for me, the process, I don't have a sort of a very sort of regimented process. If I have an idea, I write it down, I keep my little black book, and, you know, I might come back to it in a few weeks or a few months and, you know, just kind of work it up type thing. But yeah, I'm one of these people, I'm always getting ideas. Some of them are great and some of them are not so great, but, you know, the ideas are coming, and that's the important thing.
Yeah, I share that. I always get ideas coming to me in the most random places.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, write it down.
Yeah.
Because in the next 5 minutes it's gone.
Yeah.
Bill,
Absolutely.
so how do you
yeah,
turn
always
around?
walk around with a notebook, or, well, I'm quite old school. I have a notebook, even though I walk around with a phone.
No,
I
have a notebook.
Yeah, I need to physically write things down.
Yeah, it's quite hard for me to say, because I guess I would say I think for me, I mean, you class it as what you would consider like an accidental entrepreneur. It wasn't like at university I had like an idea. It was like, okay, when I leave university, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. It just happened by chance. Someone asked me to do something for them. It worked out. More people started asking for me, can I want the same thing? And it just built into a business, and it built into a career. So I guess really, if your idea is something that people want, and people want all the time, and it financially can make sense for you, I guess that is a business, really. Yeah. I guess, you know. I was gonna mention something. I think it does help if you could be a bit of a maths man and a bit of a madman, because I think there's quite a lot of creative people out there, but they just can't get it together because they either disregard or they don't care about the math side, the financial side. Yeah. So sometimes you have people who have great ideas, but the financial side, they don't care about it, and it kind of falls apart. But then vice versa, you have people that care about the finance all the time, but they don't have a good idea, and that doesn't pan out either. So if you can be a bit of both, that's where the daylight's at.
Yeah, I think, definitely running a business is definitely left brain, right brain. You know.
But for me, it was literally what I guess the company that you see now was an accident, and I think just a quick note. I mean, it was a complete accident, because when I first did that first design for my close friend, I was still working in Sainsbury's. I was working part-time, working the stock control. I was like a supervisor, so I didn't really think anything was going to go anywhere. You know, it was just like one off. But then what happened was obviously I kept on doing more and more work, and then bearing in mind, when I was working part-time at Sainsbury's, I was getting about $550 a month. So quite decent for a student. But then it got to a point where all the design work I was doing exceeded what I was earning at Sainsbury's. So I was like, hold on. So I'm working 64 hours a month, doing early shifts. So I was doing 6 till 2, 6 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon Saturday, 7 till 4 on a Sunday, and they're paying me $520, but I'm doing something that I love for less time, and I'm getting paid more than Sainsbury's, and that was it. And they just thought, forget this, you know what I mean? I thought, okay, this could really be something, and then I guess, yeah, it turned into a business, and then here I am. So sometimes it could just be like an accident, you know?
Yeah, something that we come across, Paul, is kind of a key thing. It's great to have the idea, then start building the business model around that, but something a lot of students kind of don't appreciate is the money part of it. So how do you getting clients into actual money that you can live off and grow a business on?
I beg Joe to answer this one first.
If I can add to that, kind of the confidence of asking for money as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, it's about knowing your worth, really, particularly in the creative industries, because the problem is a lot of creatives, feel really uncomfortable about money issues, but you've really got to kind of like draw a line in the sand and say, I'm trying to build my livelihood here, so you've got to be really kind of adamant about this and have that kind of awkward conversation right at the beginning, because at the end of the day you're offering a service, yeah, and you've got to be really clear about it. So, but what one of my real sort of bugbears is when people sort of randomly come up to me and say, "Oh, Joan, I've got this, I want to promote something on Facebook or whatever. How do you do it?" And I'm like, well, if I was a lawyer or an accountant, you wouldn't expect me to give you free legal or financial advice. So why is it that you think I should be giving you it because it's social media? It's my profession. It's how I earn my living. At the end of the day. So you've really kind of, you've got to know your worth, basically. And I, when I have a meeting with a client, I say, this is what I'm offering. Yeah, and if they see the value in my offering, then they will pay me accordingly. Yeah.
So, Will, you said one of your first clients was a friend of yours.
Yeah.
In terms of money, how does that work? Especially when you're starting out, getting that confidence of asking, well, this is what I'm giving you, this is how much I'm charging.
Well, it's just compensation for the exploitation, really. But it was a bit different because I guess I didn't know how much to charge. I knew that obviously it was my time that I was getting used up to do it, so I just felt, well, if I'm using my time to do this and I'm doing something for you that's making you money, surely you don't mind me asking for a bit of money. I mean, that's logical, right? But I only charged him like 50 quid. I just thought, I didn't know what to charge, so I just thought, well, I just gave him that and that was it, and he was happy with it. But then yeah. I guess what happens is when you stop working with friends and you start working with strangers, and they make you do madness, and they make you do loads of hours, then you have to start thinking to yourself, well, hold on, I'm putting more and more time into someone else's idea or business. Again, I need to be compensated. So you should really have an idea of roughly how much you want to get paid for the exploitation, and then go from there. And then I guess, like, sometimes you might say, well, I want X amount of money, and they might say, no, we don't have it, or they can't afford it. I would say, after that, it's negotiation time. I think everything's a negotiation, And I guess you just keep on doing that over and over and over again. Eventually you get to a point where maybe with certain clients you might have to compensate on how much you want to get paid, but eventually if you just keep on negotiating and keep on asking, you'll get to a point where you get really... talking about money will not be alien to you. You'll be able to talk about money freely and get the money that you want, which is... I think that's really the aim, really, to get to that point.
But in that situation, you could have a sort of quid pro quo. So they might not be able to pay you your desired rate, but they might be able to put more work your way and recommend you, that type of thing.
Yeah,
so, help to grow your business anyway.
Yeah, and sometimes it may not be the financial side. It might be like a bit of a trade-off, because I remember working with one client. This was when I was, again, maybe like 2006. And he worked for a company called Central Media. I don't know if they're still around. Are they still around? And then, he asked me to do something for him, and the money wasn't that great compared to how much work I was putting in, but he had connections. Like, he knew people. Like, off the back of this one person, he introduced me to like 15 different people that all knew connected people from there. So sometimes it kind of works out doing something for less, and then you get connections from the back of it. So sometimes you just got to work it out. But
it's whatever you feel comfortable doing, basically, at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, because someone asked me, "Oh, how did you get O2?" O2 is like a massive company. I didn't think you'd get it, but again, it was working with someone that knew someone that worked at O2, and they said, okay, I heard this is what you did, can you come and have a meeting? So that's how it works, you know.
Yeah.
Questions, anyone? Loads of questions, yeah. Got some questions here. Did we have more questions?
Hi guys, how often do you turn down jobs when you receive them? For example, I personally get asked to do websites quite frequently, but I turn them down because it's not my favorite thing to do. But in your line of work, how often do you turn down people if you don't necessarily want to do it or for other reasons?
Joan.
Thanks. It depends really. For example, if it's like a really, really big job and I've got other big clients, then I might have to sort of like park that and say, well, what I might say to them, well, actually, I might not be able to physically help you, but I can give you some advice and train up somebody within your company to actually do the work. So there is that sort of mentoring aspect, you know. But sometimes I must admit, I don't often sort of like turn down work because there's always something that I can help them with. So for example, if they want me to do something bigger and I can't do it, then there's always some way to work around it. But I've been lucky, touch wood, that I've not had really nightmare clients that I've had to sack. You know, but who knows, that might come along.
I don't really. I've turned down work in the past, but it's not that often. Usually, the terms either is not enough money for what it is, or it could be like a conflict of interest. So I've worked with a number of clients, but sometimes certain companies don't get on with certain companies. So sometimes you have to be careful.
Yeah.
You know, to avoid that conflict of interest. I remember there was a time where I got asked to do some work for Global Radio, and then I think 3 weeks later, someone asked me to do some work for Bauer. Now, Bauer is a German company, it's a German media company, and Global Radio is a Jewish media company. And I didn't know this, but they have a serious beef. And then when I found out, I was like, you know, actually, I can't do work for either of you because I don't want to get involved with that. And I knew it was going to end well for me. So that's those kind of situations you just have to kind of avoid. Also, I think I said before, I've done some work with Mindshare, and Mindshare is owned by WPP. And I remember someone saying to me, oh, you know what, you should do some work for, I can't remember the agency, but they were owned by Publicis. And again, there's like beef between the two companies. And because I do a lot of work with WPP agencies, I thought, you know what, I had to turn it down because, again, I don't want to upset.
Yeah.
I'm quite loyal to my clients. So certain situations out of loyalty you should just turn down because sometimes it could be really messy.
So was it the clients that told you that conflict, or was it just you having a market awareness?
No, just awareness.
Okay.
Because certain things are not public. A lot of the I guess politics are very private situations. They're not in the media. They're not open. So, but people know about certain situations. So from what I hear and speaking to a few people, sometimes you have to make that decision to be like, you know what, this is not going to end well for me. So I have to say no. You don't have to tell the client this is the reason. You just say, look, because I'm afraid I have to turn it down. I've got other commitments or so forth. So.
Okay, we had one more question. Yeah.
Hi. I was just gonna ask because you're saying know your worth. But when you say that, do you mean did you do industry research? Did you have a mentor? Were you just asking questions of people? How much you should be charging that were doing what you wanted to do? Because I think when you're doing things in the creative industry or like something that's very niche, I think it can be hard to kind of know what that worth is.
Yeah.
So how did you find that out?
I think it's really important to do your research just to find out what the market rate is for the particular work that you're doing in your particular sector. For example, I know what the going rate is for like a typical social media manager, you know, in a big corporation kind of. So basically use that as your benchmark, yeah? So find out what people are being paid and just use that as your benchmark. I think that's really important. So you can either charge below that benchmark or above it, it depends. But definitely do your research. Because if you don't do your research and you sort of just pluck some figure out the air, then you might just scare off your potential clients because they would have done their research and they know what the going rate is. Yeah.
We had one question around here as well. Yeah.
Hi, yeah, so one of the things that I've been struggling with is I enjoy social media, but I think I enjoy it more from a spectator, like watching, but obviously...
Oh, you're a lurker.
Yeah, confessions. Yeah. But the thing is, it seems for you, Will, that you grew your business quite organically in terms of word of mouth and people recommending your business. And I've gotten to the point where, because of what's required to have, say, a good social media page, like the analytics and getting the pictures right, and I feel a bit intimidated by that process. I haven't started, and I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking, can I get away with creating my business without social media? Can I get away with being creative and making people aware of it, but without using the platforms? Because it seems that that's what you've done through word of mouth. And I wonder how, if that still serves you now as a business, whether you're still doing well off the back of word of mouth and people recommending you versus you putting your work out for a platform.
Okay, can I ask what industry is your business in?
So I'm currently studying herbal medicine. So eventually I will be working as I'll be a practitioner. So what I'm trying to do is just build a platform around awareness. But I am really creative. So I wanted to just start with awareness so that people would know me and what I'm doing, and maybe a bit of education in there. But then at the same time, I do have this kind of this thing of social media where I just feel like it's very quite, as you say, it can be quite shallow. It can be quite, am I getting the right audience? Do I really want to follow trends and follow crowds when it's not me, just to sell something? So I'm just wondering if I could essentially get away with just doing it word of mouth and...
Yeah, you can. Yeah, like...
And still be successful, because I feel like there's a pressure for people to have it. Like the man said, you don't need it, but everyone's doing it. So you do it, but do I really need it?
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of my peers really kind of going hard at it and not necessarily getting the return, but really kind of daily videos and posts, and I'm thinking, am I going to have to do this? Do I want to do that?
Yeah, you can have I think you got to have things in moderation. I don't think you can, you can build your whole business of social media, but I reckon you're better off doing everything. So not just social media, but just doing offline marketing, press, PR, the things that were there before social media, word of mouth, going to trade shows. There's different avenues, so I think it'd be good for you to kind of work out the different avenues to go to, because I'm sure if you went to like a trade show and the type of clients that are going to be there, they might not even be on social media, but they know. I find with the older generations, like they're less known. No disrespect, but they're less on social media, but they still have connections, and their connections are not on social media. So I would say you wouldn't necessarily always have to rely on social media. I think having a balance of all the different ways you can market is the key, I would say.
I would just jump in. I would say, do you have a website? Yeah, I think it's important for you to have some online presence. Yeah. Maybe not a social media, but you definitely need to have a website, because even if you're going to go to these trade shows, they're going to, the potential clients are going to want to see, if you've got a website.
Yeah. I feel like now, say a social media platform, a website is like your digital CV essentially. Mm. So I understand that I need something where I can just have you said your name, and I know I'll remember that, and I can go and look at that, and you haven't even given me your card, so I understand that it's important, but it's about the rat race of the social media, whether I can
absolutely
kind of swerve that. And
yeah,
still
no,
be
I mean,
successful.
I think you can do social media, but not be so kind of like frenetic, and because everybody's like, I know people, You know, I've got one particular friend, he posts like 10 posts a day, and that's just on Instagram. You know, which is, for me, I don't think you need to do Instagram posts more than 3 a day.
Does that work, the regular, the 10 posts a day? Do you find
I don't think it's worked, because he's coming to me, he wants me to help him get more traction, you know, at the end of the day.
So there's no kind of, the more you post...
No, I don't think he's getting the level of loyalty that he wants, you know, at the end of the day. I think you can do too much of it. You know, hence why I encourage you to have an editorial calendar so you can plan, you know, what's your message, you know, on that particular post, you know.
I agree. You can't just be doing things blindly on social media, just posting every day. Yeah.
And you annoy people as well.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I unfollow people for that very reason. Yeah. It's like, oh, stop it. Okay, I saw 2 hands go up, but we are running out of time. But I know your hand went up really enthusiastically, so go on.
In terms of becoming a practitioner soon, I graduated from Westminster in 2011, and I'm now a practitioner. And I don't know, with age and being the older audience, but my social media skills are not fantastic at all. I'm 39 this year, and I don't really use that much. But I think that a good word of advice is that if you've studied hard enough and if you're good at what you do, it's people's main thing is to be well and well-being. So if you're good at what you do, then there's no reason why you won't be busy, you know? So that's something I wanted to just express.
Great. So we are moving on to the next section, and that is management. So starting with Paul, how can a creative boss develop teams which are both creative and efficient? And with that, what's the best way to manage people on teams?
Okay, I want you to ask later whether Will's mum was right, making him do the business thing and do the art in his spare time, or could he have done it the other way around? So Sheila's going to, you tell us the answer to that.
Okay.
I'll have a little witter about. So one of the things about if your business grows and then you've got to bring in other people, and you've got to decide a little bit some of the time whether you're going to be the maths head and you're going to bring in the mad people to be your new creative thing. And I think there's a bunch of things about what you might think of as talent. So in television, I had to work a lot with people who think of themselves as talent, being the sort of on-screen talent. And there's a very strange psychology that happens with anyone who gets any kind of public recognition. There's a sort of diva syndrome that kicks in more or less 15 minutes after anyone's noticed them. And so you've got to, so that's part of the process of having talent. You've got to make a judgment about whether that person's talent brings you enough attention and audiences and all the rest of it that they're worth you putting up with potential diva qualities. So you're always making that judgment. The other thing is just that idea of what kind of is efficiency and so on. You know, the thing about management is it all comes from kind of manufacturing. It's all about the idea that you can make a car cheaper or make a glass as good but cheaper than someone else. And the creative industries aren't really like that, because you never make the same glass twice, you know? You're always kind of... So there's a sense in which you have to try and think about the math stuff, but ultimately it's whether people love your stuff, it's whether it goes around, whether you get that word of mouth, it's whether it attracts lots of people. That's what defines whether you're successful or not. So I think managing a creative business is really hard, because you can't do it like you would a normal business. You can't just think, oh, if we do it a bit cheaper, we'll be better. You always have to think, maybe we have to be more expensive, maybe we don't make so much money, but maybe that's what brings everyone in, and it's those eyeballs that actually make us the money.
It's interesting actually, because that's sort of like the Apple model, isn't it? That they create premium products. They've never tried to compete with, the IBMs of this world. They're trying to create a premium quality product, at the end of the day. And not everybody's going to be into it, but that's their sort of like marquee product. And I think that kind of works in the creative industries, because, at the end of the day, we're not making tins of baked beans. Not that there's anything wrong with tins of baked beans, but, we're dealing with something different, something sort of ephemeral. It's talking about how do you define creativity? It's that certain thing, isn't it? I know when I see something creative, I feel it. I've got that sense, be it music, art, whatever. It's got that certain, undefinable quality, at the end of the day.
So when we were speaking earlier and you said you're a team made up of yourself primarily and freelancers, how do you manage that kind of, what you were saying earlier, Will, is that attention to detail, kind of pride in quality, but then also that efficiency aspect, and then also managing different dynamics and different ways of working as a creative boss?
Yeah, definitely. You can't have a kind of one-size-fits-all approach. You've got to manage individuals differently, depending on their sort of temperament at the end of the day. But I think what the underlying issue is that they all have to know and understand and believe in the vision of the company. Yeah? So that way we're all pulling in the same direction. So it's a mixture of dealing with people's individual temperaments, but making sure that they understand the sort of the grand vision and what it is that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think also being a good teacher as well. Obviously, the more experience you have, you can always teach new people, or people that are working with you that may have the same experience. So I guess I spend a lot of my time, if I'm working on big projects with different designers, I'll tell them, look, you should do it this way. Not in terms of the creative side, but in terms of the technical side. You should do it this way. No, take that out. No, you should avoid doing that and that helps them actually understand or make them do the work more efficiently, and avoid certain potholes. Yeah, I think like just being a good teacher definitely helps.
That's really good actually, because very often I sort of run classes on how to write the perfect tweet type thing. Yeah, so it's like technically, how to sort of actually do things. Yeah, totally. So yeah, you need to have good mentoring skills, without a doubt.
The converse of that, kind of going off script, is especially kind of from a student perspective, looking to get hired, is how do you spot, or what makes a good employee in your experience so far? Who has been a good employee?
Someone that's multi-talented. I think before you could just be a graphic designer and be a graphic designer for life. I think that party is coming to a close. I think you have to have more value or offer more than the next person. So I tend to get people that can do multiple skills. So maybe I might find someone that's a graphic designer and a photographer, or someone that can do 3D and do illustration, or something like a mix of different skills, and that makes them alone more efficient than just the person that can just do one thing. It also helps as well, because if you're trying to sell to a client and they're asking you who have you got on this, you can say, well, my man does X, Y, Z. It's automatically impressive, as opposed to, okay, he just does this, So I always try and get people that can do more than one skill, or offer more than one skill. And there was a book by Adrian Shaughnessy called How to Be a Graphic Designer Without Killing Yourself, or something like that. And he said that you should always get people that are better than you. Because if they're better than you, then you have to leave. You can be more hands off with them and let them just do what they do best. Where if you're a paranoid person, or you just want to be the top boss, and you just get people that are not as good as you, then generally you're gonna have to work with them. You're gonna have to work with them all the time, and spend more time getting them to like a certain point, and it's just more hassle. So I think getting people that are talented or more talented than you are is also, and also someone that can do more than one skill, that's where the money's at.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in autonomy, letting people just get on it. Because I remember when I was an employee, I hated being micromanaged. I just don't like that because it shows a lack of trust and insecurity. So I like autonomy, but also as well, what's really, really important for me is having someone who has a willingness to learn. Definitely hungry for knowledge, wants to learn new things, new tricks. That's really important.
Yeah, and enthusiastic.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I like people that are hungry.
Yeah.
You can use that energy and the enthusiasm. It goes so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when you meet someone, if they're the sort of person who's kind of still talking about what they want to do, after you've kind of given up and you're thinking, God, when are we going to go home? That's probably going to be a good person because they've got drive, they've got loads of ideas, they've thought about why they're there. If there's someone you're dragging it all out of, I mean, I don't know, maybe graphic designers are quite quiet and they just show you something brilliant and then you go, wow, and then they never speak again, you know. But all the best people I've ever hired have been people I've been thinking, right, shut up now because we've all got to go, you know, and I think you're going to be brilliant.
Great. So, Q, the question that Paul asked, how does understanding management or economics help us understand the importance of creativity and innovation will? So how did doing that business-centric degree and then doing the design on the side come together to help you be successful?
It helps because I think when you start dealing with money, you're gonna have to be good with the numbers, or it's gonna fall apart quick. You know, I think me doing the business computing course really helped because I got to learn about profit and loss and balance sheets and taxes. It does help because, for example, I remember I had to do a project with Kevin Millen. It was their 30th year anniversary, and they wanted me to do the design and the in-store events for 6 or 7 of their stores across the UK and Ireland, and they just gave me a budget. Just paid it. Didn't no 30 days. Just paid it all in one go. So I've got thousands of pounds in my account, and I've got to do this. And if I didn't have the money side or the management side, it would have just gone to everything. It would just it would have employed it. But because I learnt about forecasting and budgeting, I learnt all that in the University of Westminster. That just helped me manage the situation properly and manage my suppliers and just do things calculated. So it definitely helped. I think, to be fair, even on small cases, if you can't manage your money on little small projects, then how are you going to manage it on big projects? And I think sometimes that's how a lot of agencies go out of business, because they don't really care too much, or they're not putting too much priorities on the finance side, and they care too much about the creativity, and then it just gets, the situation just implodes. And bear in mind, it's a business at the same time. Like, running a creative business is half creative, half business. So you have to have both sides on lock, you know?
So what would you kind of advise students here, or kind of people who are graduates who are creatively minded and haven't studied a business-centric degree? How do they get that business acumen?
Well, for me, I didn't do a business-centred degree. Actually, when I did my master's, we did do economics. So I knew what a Kondratiev cycle was and all the rest of it. But sort of like on a more fundamental level, I would strongly suggest that if you want to run your own business, do a short course in bookkeeping. Absolutely fundamental, so you can manage your cash flow, which is so important. So definitely. I know it doesn't sound particularly sexy. Actually, I quite like bookkeeping. I find it quite therapeutic. But yeah, I think it's really important to really get on top of that. And have a good accountant as well. That's really, really fundamental.
Definitely agree. Either learn it or get someone that you trust to help you out, because
Yeah.
anyone in this room could be in a situation where I believe anyone in this room could get to a point where they can have like thousands or millions of pounds in their hands. But if you don't have someone that understands the money side, or if you don't know it yourself, it can fall apart. So I would say, either learn it or get someone that you trust to help you with the finance side.
Yeah, there's a little saying. It says, do what you do best and outsource the rest. So yeah, definitely.
That's great. Do we have any questions to add to that? Yep, one question there. There.
Hello again. How do you scale up without disrupting your management? So how would you do it effectively, and which hoops did you jump through, or what problems did you have during the process of getting where you are now throughout the years?
God, what a chance. God, yeah, I think basically setting up a business and thinking, where am I going to get my clients from? Yeah, that was quite scary. But my very first client was actually Middlesex University, and I got that because the person who was looking to hire somebody I actually went to university with, and we were just having a conversation in the pub, and I was telling her about my business. She goes, "Oh, you're perfect. You're exactly what I need. I need somebody like you." And that's kind of like how the ball got rolling, really. But it's just trying to find that first client, and that's the really quite scary bit. You think, okay, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Where am I going to find this person? And my first few clients were actually through word of mouth. And then LinkedIn became increasingly important, people finding me on LinkedIn. So yeah, so I think primarily, even now, primarily it's word of mouth and LinkedIn for me.
But what are you talking about, like a big client? How do you manage?
Well, I meant more like, how did you scale up from the beginning up to where you are now? So what hoops did you go through, like throughout the years to begin with? Who you hired to begin with, like what problems you went through and figured out to kind of adapt to a bigger scale and do bigger productions from a smaller site when you just did posters and stuff like that.
Well, the first time I scaled up, I almost went bankrupt. I scaled up. It was. I think what had happened was, because again, I think I didn't go. I think the times where I made mistakes is what I was again focused too much on the creative side and not on the money side. But what happened is I started working with Hammersmith and Fulham Council, and the projects were pretty good. The project will get to a point where I can afford to get staff now. The margins were good. But what had happened is instead of working out actually what type of staff do I need, how long for, I just started hiring people without thinking. Next thing you know, I've got 7 staff, and it's 2009 and it's the recession, and I don't know how I'm going to pay for these people. And it just went, and it went a bit sour for a while. So that was the mistakes that I did, just again, not really thinking about the financial side, just thinking, okay, well, I've got this client, I can do this, I can do that. So I think I've scaled up again, but I've just been more careful in terms of if I know if it's going to be like a particular size project, I've worked out, okay, how long is it going to take? What staff do I need? How much how much is going to be the cost? I budget it all out and work out how much the margin is or how much I'm going to take home. And if it makes sense, then I can do it, and then I can use what I've done there to do another project or pick up another client. If it doesn't make sense, again, I just pass it on to someone else, or I just say I can't do it. Because you can get killed by scaling up if you don't do it properly. You do have to kind of take your time or just plan it properly, I would say.
Just following up from that, I'm sort of starting to dip my toe into procurements and tender documents, and that's quite scary. And I've actually got a mentor helping me with that. So I don't know, if we come back next year, I'll tell you how I got on with that.
We're going to have just one more question, just here. Yeah.
Kind of a question for Will and John as well. when looking at people to hire, it's probably the wrong place to ask, given the fact that we're sitting in a university, but how important is the actual degree? Obviously, from like a graphic design point of view, I personally don't really think that, I believe that it's the work more than the degree that should speak to the quality of the candidate, but from your perspective, do you actually hire based on the degree, or is it more about the work?
No, I don't hire on the degree. It's just the work and the personality. If someone comes in, if I have an interview with someone and they've been to, like Camberwell School of Art or someone like that, and they're just like annoying, I'm not going to employ them, because I know it's just going to be hassle day in, day out. Where if I get a kid who's not been to university, but his work is amazing, and he wants to win like me, and we get on, I'm going to hire him, because you know that that's the type of person that you want. You know, I mean, education is still important, but I don't really check about where they've been. It's more about what you can do, what you're like, and can I get on with you?
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately in our industry, I still get loads of people that have been to like prestigious colleges and schools, but they can't deliver. You know, so.
Yeah, definitely agree, yeah. Yeah, it's the attitude, isn't it, and ambition.
Paul, do you want to add to that?
Well, I always tell my students that there's only 3 questions when you go into an interview, which people want to know. And one is, can you do the job? So have you got any skills? The second one is, will you do the job? Will you actually turn up and do it? And the third one is, will you fit in with us? And every question they ask you is basically a different version of one of those. So when you go to an interview, that's what you need to know. You need to know, have you got what it takes? Have you got the skills these people want? Do you really, really want to do that job more than the other people? And do you get on with them? Is there that sort of bond? And if you've got those 3 things going for you, you've got a good chance.
Yeah, can you deliver? Yeah.
Can you do the job?
Yeah, because again, there's loads of like hipster designers in London. They look cool, their Instagram's great, but they can't deliver, or they don't turn up on time, or they just go AWOL. Again, if you're trying to run a business, you can't deal with that, you know. So yeah,
I like that.
making sure that they can deliver and deliver on time that's key as well.
Okay, moving on to a juicy kind of topical subject now, Brexit and diversity. So how do you all think that Brexit will impact the creative industries, or have you observed an impact already on the creative industries?
Paul?
No, it's you, man. This is you, man.
Paul?
What's the question?
How do you think Brexit will impact the creative industries, or has it already started to impact the creative industries in your observation?
I don't know. I mean, I'm seeing it from a different view. I mean, what I would say, since Brexit, we've had way more international clients come to us for work. I don't know if it's just because of the pound, the weak pound, but we had way more. So particularly, we've had an Israeli company called Mindspace. They do co-working spaces, mainly in Israel and in Poland and in Germany. And they've asked us, can you do the London launch? So then they've got 2 spaces in London, one in Whitechapel, one in Shoreditch. That was random. I don't know how they found me. I don't know why they picked me. And then I had a French businessman from Cameroon asking me, I'm starting a supper club in Douala, in the business capital. Can you do the branding for it? Again, very random, but it's definitely more international interest since Brexit. I don't really understand why, but I'm guessing it could be linked to the weaker pound. But also as well because they know that England, they consider like creative designers in England like of the highest caliber. I'll say that like designers from England are more higher than American designers. So I think you get the prestige with that. So I think it has affected. I think Brexit has affected our art industry, but for me in a quite unique, in a different way.
Positively, in a positive.
Yeah, I'll say positive. Positive and negative actually, because I I think the international clients are benefiting more than the domestics. So, for example, I work with a company called Rise Festival. They do a yearly ski festival in the Do Alps. And before Brexit, things were fine. After Brexit, a lot of budgets got cut because the costings were in, I think they were in euros, not pounds. And it actually affected everything. It affected the ticket sales, it affected the cost, it kind of messed up everything. So, and eventually it affected us because they said to us, look, we can't afford to pay what we paid you the year before. So I'll say overall, I mean, personally, we've benefited, but it's quite turbulent. I can't really say overall if it was positive or negative overall. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you guys feel.
I don't know, I think it might see sort of like a reduction in marketing budgets, I think, really, the uncertainty of it. Maybe, though, sort of conversely, you might see more of a sort of like maybe more sort of like recruitment drive, more home-based recruitment, yeah? Because to compensate for the fact that they can't sort of like broaden the recruitment net a bit. So that might be potentially a positive if you want to see it as a positive, yeah? So I think definitely maybe a reduction in marketing budgets, but more of a sort of like home-based recruitment.
Okay, we are slowly running out of time, so I'm going to take it to Q&A. Any questions around diversity and Brexit? Yep, one question back there. Keep your hand up.
The man in blue.
Checked.
Hi. I work in a completely different area, but still with creativity. And I do get this idea that nowadays the majority of our clients are actually trying to get as much work done before Brexit is actually implemented. Are you guys passing through that process as well? Do you think that is one of the reasons why you're getting, well, in your case, you're getting international clients, and I believe that that's because the pound is actually cheaper. I completely agree with your argument, but do you have the feel that everyone is trying to get as much stuff done as possible before Brexit is fully implemented?
Okay. I think the nature of my clients, I don't feel that. I guess if I worked with more clients that were in corporate finance banking, then maybe I would say so. But because a lot of my clients are in music, fashion, lifestyle, it doesn't really affect them like that, really, I would say. So not necessarily, but still, they are a bit unsure about how Brexit is gonna turn out. But they're not making us do extra work before Brexit happens. Yeah, I think it's business as usual, but there's definitely, they do feel an uncertainty, you know? I mean, me personally, I kind of feel like Brexit still might collapse. I mean, as we get on closer and closer, there's more and more things that need to be resolved. The questions are getting more difficult. The answers are not there to be found. So I'm still believing. I said this to Sir Martin Sorrell at Advertising Week. I think last year. I said to him, "This still could collapse." I mean, he said, no, it's gonna go through." But because every week I read something new that hasn't been thought about, that hasn't been questioned. So I still kind of feel that Brexit might collapse. But in my industry, it's just people are worried, people are a bit concerned, but it's business as usual.
I think in the corporate world, it's definitely business as usual, but we might see a reduction in some of the marketing budgets, I think.
Okay, so you will get a chance to ask questions to both Joan, Will and Paul in the networking session, but to kind of round up, considering all that we've discussed, how would you say your time at Westminster has got you to where you are right now, all of you? And Paul specifically, what would you advise students here or graduates to take from Joan and Will's experiences, and what's available to them now and going forward?
Will you start with your experience, Jo?
Well, being at Westminster has given me invaluable career opportunities. I'll just quickly tell you the story of my MA journey, my Westminster Part 2 journey. It was about 8 years ago. It was 8 years after I first graduated, and I bumped into Dr. Richard Barbrook at Willesden Green Tube Station. Hadn't seen him for about a number of years. And we got chatting, asked him what he was doing. He said he was running this new course called MA Hypermedia Studies. Oh, well, that sounds cool and funky. And I told him at the time I was running a music magazine called Cypher. And I told him that I was really thinking about putting it on the internet. And this was about 1998. And he said, okay, you can come talk to one of my students. So he arranged a meeting with one of his students, and she absolutely just blew my mind with this course and how great it was. So I basically kind of put the magazine on hold and enrolled on the course, and it completely changed my life, really. I stopped being a journalist and started moving into digital. And you've got to think about, around about 2000, it was a completely different landscape. There was no social media. Google was the relative sort of new kid on the block. The search engines were like Alta Vista and Yahoo, and you had AOL dial-up. You couldn't watch any video because it took forever to buffer. It was just the Badlands, basically. But I knew that the proverbial tectonic plates were shifting. I knew somehow that things were going to be moving online, and I'm so glad I made that decision 18 years ago, and it's just been an incredible journey for me, sort of working as a digital project manager, moving into social media, and it's been an incredibly enriching journey, and I'm just so grateful for Westminster for doing that, really. And yeah, that's kind of like why I'm here, really. So I'm very thankful, really.
Will?
I think one of the best things that happened to me at University of Westminster was actually there was a web design module in my degree in the first year. We we had this Frenchman teaching us how to build websites from scratch, and that was the first time I ever got learnt to do website design. And also, he was quite strict as well in terms of how you should lay it out, what you should not do, what you should do. So not only did he teach me something that was quite new at the time, but he also taught me like the principles of it and made me quite disciplined. And again, once I started getting a taste of doing design, I started offering website design as my another offering. And again, and I scaled up from there. So that's one of the definitely the benefits of going to University of Westminster. That definitely helped me to the career path where I am now.
And also as well, when you're here, you make such fantastic contacts as well, which is really, really important.
Yeah, that's all I was going to say. So if you Google Creative Enterprise Centre, University of Westminster, and subscribe to Sheila's excellent newsletter that comes out, come down and see them. They're based in Harrow. We want lots more people like Will and Joan to come from Westminster. And the whole idea of the Enterprise Centre is to try and give you those bits that you think you need to get you onto that next stage, whether it's a bit of knowledge about doing accounts or tax, or whether it's just meeting those other people. You've just heard how important these contacts they made were in getting that start, getting from where they are. But sometimes, Joan worked for a bit. Sometimes you don't go straight into being your own business person. You go and learn stuff working for other people, and gradually you get there. But to start to do that process, get to know people, and then have that vision, just communicate what it is you want to do so that everybody knows. Some people, think, I've got this idea, I shouldn't tell people about it because I'm going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. Don't. Honestly, tell everybody what you want to do, and you'll find other people who kind of share that vision, who want to help you along the way, and who kind of need what you're doing, So, yeah, that's my message.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you to an excellent panel. So if we give them a round of applause. Yeah, so we are now going to a networking session. There's drinks, soft and hard at the back, and please do approach Paul, Will and Joan and ask any questions you didn't get a chance to ask. Thank you everyone. Thank you for staying till the end.